With Iron Man and the Hulk now firmly grounded in the cinematic universe, Marvel set its sights beyond the stars. In 1962, with Jack Kirby once again wielding his mighty pencil, Marvel hit the stands with a new superhero named Thor. Thor, though, wasn't entirely original. As a god of thunder, his origin could be traced back to the days of Vikings and Norse mythology.
We had done almost every type of hero, and I was thinking, what could we do that's different? And as far as I knew, there was no god who was a superhero taken from legend. So I thought to myself, it would be fun to do a Norse god. And I love adjectives, so I called the thing the Mighty Thor. That was the name of the book. And luckily, it caught on.
Throughout the years, Marvel artists and writers like Walt Simonson and J. Michael Straczynski expanded on Stan Lee's original vision of the legendary god.
When I began doing the book and began thinking about the Vikings and trying to do more mythological stuff and maybe more Viking stuff without trying to copy the myths exactly.
Walt Simonson is a very unique artist. He very much transformed the way that people looked at Thor, but more importantly, Asgardians, their armor, and the technology. JMS's run is influential in a different regard, as he mined different aspects of the character and brought it right down to earth.
There was a time in Greek mythology and Roman mythology when you would have the gods and the humans walking side by side. You can interact with them. They were part of our everyday lives. So the idea of rooting him in New Mexico and rooting him in the earth seemed like a natural thing to do to sort of ground the character.
To create the world of Thor, both on planet Earth and above, Marvel needed a director that could mold these two fantastical stories together.
Aside from casting, the thing that Marvel does best is they pick the right directors for their projects.
For Thor, Marvel decided on Kenneth Branagh. Like Favreau, Branagh enjoyed a successful career as an actor before becoming a highly regarded director, helming celluloid versions of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing and Hamlet.
I think it can be daunting to any filmmaker to come into this process with a film like Thor, which has massive expectations, as all Marvel movies do. But the truth is, Ken is someone in his career who's faced many challenges.
It's an epic adventure, and I wanted to direct a film on that scale.
Tone of this opening is excellent. Okay, here we go. And action!
Ken was the only one who came in with a real vision. He was just electrifying when he talked about how big and the sprawling nature, and how when he was a kid, this was the only American comic book he read and he loved. Ken got it. He knew what Thor could be in its grandest.
Just as director Jon Favreau needed Robert Downey Jr. for Iron Man, Branagh required a special leading man for his film, an actor that could embody not only the physical traits of the character, but also display a wide range of emotions.
The great thing about Marvel is that you always have a guidebook, and they'd say 6'6", and you know, he's this many pounds, and he wears this many things, he has these powers. And then we have our script, and we know what we want there, which is a very, very complex and passionate individual.
There are a lot of ways to go with Thor, but we knew early on that we didn't want to just cast a bodybuilder or just cast a wrestler. And we decided that we were going to go for just the best actor who fits the role, whether anybody'd heard of them or not. We have the luxury that our stories are so appealing and that the comics are so popular that kind of the character is the marquee name. There's not the pressure to say, gosh, you need to get a movie star in this part or you won't be able to make the movie.
We waited until we felt in our bones we'd got exactly the right person for this version of Thor, and Chris Hemsworth is that.
Hemsworth, a relatively unknown actor from Australia, blew filmmakers away with his Thor audition.
For this film to work, you gotta love our hero. You gotta just be behind him. And Chris does humor and sorrow, and strength in such an honest way. And I've never seen someone throw themselves at work like that before.
He's worked really hard to make himself sort of that godly physique.
He can deliver these lines, which are very grand, in a way that you believe.
I am Thor, Odin's son.
We had to push him to really slice the ham sometimes in a way that Thor thought was being impressive, because it was part of the very pleasing arc from a thoughtless man to a thoughtful man.
Oh, they brought the big boy in. Nice.
I knew who Thor was and knew about the Marvel Universe to some degree. So that was the exciting thing about getting the part.
Okay. Well, what if it's all the way out? And lower as well. Just try lower. See if we... That okay?
Whether you're playing a god or a human or whatever, you make it real and relatable. And that was the smart thing about this story. The backdrop was a film about gods, but it was about, human beings.
Brother, whatever I have done to wrong you, I am truly sorry. But these people are innocent. Taking their lives will gain you nothing. So take mine and end this.
In the pivotal role of Thor's mischievous brother Loki, Branagh cast actor Tom Hiddleston.
But it would just be in those moments, the dramatic moments. You get there. Yeah. Just give me one look there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anytime.
Loki is the guy who causes trouble. He causes trouble in the palaces of the gods and therefore mortals on Earth in that time. And he's got a slightly unhinged nature.
Loki, this is madness.
Is it madness? Is it?
It's a very important part because Loki is, and we hope will become, one of the biggest villains in the Marvel Universe across many, many films.
It's about ancient feuds, sibling rivalries, like the best kind of cross-genre sort of movie. For me, anyway, it was an easy yes.
One of the first designs Branagh wanted to explore was that of Thor's almighty hammer.
The first challenge with the hammer is to work out how to pronounce it, which is Mjolnir in our movie at the moment. Until somebody corrects me, I'm sure they will. Mjolnir, the hammer, this awesome weapon for Thor.
Again, the team turned to Ryan Meinerding, and this time with artist Charlie Wen for inspiration.
I think every time I drew Thor, almost, I did a hammer. Charlie had done a lot of variations. He did probably like 60 or 70 different variations at the very beginning of the project.
I still like the wrapping,
yes,
because it's very Norse.
Yeah. They paid a lot of attention to paying homage to that Viking era, which is, all the Norse mythology that Thor is based on.
There is significance to everything we've done on the hammer. There are runes on the top of the hammer. Sort of went back and forth and decided what needed to be on this hammer because there's a lore involved that you don't sway from in certain areas, and this is one of them.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Norse mythology is definitely in there, but at the same time, it goes back to Kirby. So trying to fit those together, I think that's kind of where we started. I think that's also where Ken was like, he does want to get Kirby in there and not completely lose the Norse element.
It's Excalibur, it's the sword in the stone. It has to have that power. When we see it, boy, you're going to know it.
The film is constantly contrasting. It has a sort of beautiful element about it, from Asgard to Earth, and then from gods in these costumes to Earth people, and the human beings. And with the fight sequences, you have big dramatic flying, stunts and magic and all sorts of things, and then hand-to-hand combat, a bunch of guys beating the hell out of each other.
The challenge is really this combination of the spectacular visual and physical world of Asgard, the world of the gods, with the world of contemporary Earth.
Bo Welch, a production designer, did an amazing job.
He had a wonderful sense of unique vision, but his source material was always present. He just pushed it to its height, and that's what Asgard was going to need, and Jotunheim, and even Earth.
The challenge was other worlds, multiple dimensions. When you sit down and study all the various runs of the comics, they're wildly different from one run to the next, so your visual cues are all over the place. I've got 1 foot in Jack Kirby land, who generated, I think, the iconic imagery of Thor. I've got 1 foot in Norse mythology, and I've got 1 foot in beautiful, perfect, modern, Zen-like architecture, so that there's room for these elaborate characters and costumes to breathe.
This film didn't have a whole lot of green screen. They built these incredible, huge sets.
I came here and walked around the sets, and I thought, well, that's it. I don't have to do much. I just show up and put on the armor and let it happen.
I walked into that set and I thought, this costume with these horns and the spear in this throne, in this room, you've got your shot.
You can bring your urgent matter to me. Your king.
There's a lot of restraint in Asgard, so that these very elaborate costumes and bigger than life, almost godlike characters have room around them and the focus is on them.
Marvel's internal visual development department worked closely with costume designer Alex Byrne to make these larger-than-life costumes a reality.
One of the things that I enjoy doing and working on these projects is being sort of a middle ground between what the comics is and trying to take it into an illustrated realm that adds a little bit more reality to it, and then having the costume designer have that as a basis for them to work from to actually bring it into reality.
Whether you believe in Thor's personal charisma, his character journey, you've got to give him an intention. It can't just be sort of swash and buckle. It can't be off for Asgard. It can't be a sort of empty hurrah. This applies to cape. This applies to helmet. It applies to discs. You have to ask why. Okay, so why does he need the cape? Can it tell us a story about his position? Does it help him move better or worse? Does it give a visual signal to other characters? The helmet, or what's it used for? Is it ceremonial? Is it aggressive? Always find a why. And so Alex Byrne was great at doing that.
I have to say we have a great team of actors because the clothes are not easy. They do not take 5 minutes to put on.
It's about an hour in the costume. It's just layers and bits and pieces. And in the first couple of weeks, we were pouring sweat and dying in these things. Then they came up with these cooling vests, which I think the race car drivers wear, which basically a little vest with pipes that run sort of cold water through and can cool you down.
I haven't quite counted how many pieces it takes to get this thing on, but it's an incredible, incredible piece of work. I mean, it makes you stand up straight. You know, there's no sitting around in jeans and a t-shirt ordering a Frappuccino in this costume.
The challenge is bring visuals to the screen that people haven't seen before. At the same time, giving it the Marvel aesthetic of the wish fulfillment, of that relatable hero, of a journey of redemption.
It's hard with a big action story to really hope that you could claim original or unique images, but I think that the fabric of Thor provides them, and I think that we've been brave enough to meet that challenge and visually to really enjoy the scale and the scope. That was exciting.